Hi. So today we're going to learn how to make the shadow box from Graphic45 since it's out of stock on their site. You can go to their site and shadow window box, look it up on the Graphic45 site, and it will give you the measurements, but you can also put your email in there to have them remind you when it comes back in stock. But I went ahead and I made mine, and I'm going to give you the measurements and we're going to work on making this. You're going to need some chipboard. I'm using the 8.5 by 11, and you're going to need some form of cutter, whether you use one of the self-healing mats with a rotary or whether you use a guillotine like this one. You'll need a pencil, and I'm going to use my quilt ruler, my square quilt ruler. I like it. It's see-through. You can get things pretty square. Let's go ahead. I'm going to give you the measurements for this, and so make sure you get them either written down if you want to make this later, or we'll come back and I'll show them to you throughout the video. First of all, we need to cut a top and a bottom. This has both a top and a bottom that are basically the same size, and then it has what we call a foxing, which is the inside, which keeps the top from falling off of the bottom. So you can cut multiples of each of the numbers that I'm giving you so that you can make both of your boxes so that they're really square. This one I did one at a time to see if I could get the foxing in. This was my first one, and so I was real nervous about doing the foxing, so I made the bottom and then put the foxing, then I made the top. But I think if we cut all the pieces at one time and make the top and the bottom at the same time, your measurements should be really close. So we're going to try and do that. Then we'll work on the foxing. The foxing wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Okay, so first of all, the size of the box is a 9 1/4 by 5 1/4 by 2 1/4. So basically what we want to do is we want to cut both the top and the bottom of the box that size. So you don't have to do the 2 1/4. That's just the entire size of the box. So we want to cut 2 pieces of chipboard at 9 1/4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to walk you through that. Let's put this aside for now, and we will get our chipboard and a pencil. I'm not going to use a pen on this. So, okay, we know that we want 9 1/4, which this is an 8.5 by 11, so I'm going to do my 9 1/4 this way. So I put it on here, and I'm going to try and get everything as square as I can. That's the other thing that I really like about these quilt rulers, because it has all the markings both vertically and horizontally. I go ahead and line everything up on one line, and I make sure that the other line is pretty square. So that's my 9 1/4. And then I want a 5 1/4 across this way. So again, I'm going to line the top and the bottom. So there's my 5 1/4. Okay, so I want to do this again. Before I even start cutting, I'm going to go ahead and mark my second piece of chipboard, and this is medium chipboard. It's black, but you can use any color that you like. Generally it comes in gray, black, and white. So those are basically your choices. You might be able to find more. I just haven't tried to look for other colors of chipboard. Those are the only 3 that I've ever worked with. Okay, so there's my 9 1/4. I'm going to mark that again. And I'm going to turn it and mark my 5 1/4 on this side. So So we know that when we want to do the sides of our boxes, we want one to be the 5 1/4 size, and then the other side we want to be a little bit longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut my longer edge first. And I don't think I'm going to extend this so that I didn't get it quite to the top. There we go. Okay, that's just so it's easier for me to put it in my guillotine and cut it. So I'm going to get my guillotine out. And again, if you like using the self-healing mat with the rotary cutter, go ahead and do it. I just know that it hurts my hands, my wrists to do that. My husband has done it for me once in a while. But this is basically pretty much the easiest for me to do. So I'm going to cut my long line first. And I'm going to cut my other long line. Then I will check them to make sure they are very close to the same size. Now save these because we're going to use them. Okay, so I put them together. Yes, they're exact. They're just exact. So now I'm going to do my 5 1/4 side, this side, the smaller side. And I'm going to do the same thing. Yes. So those should be good. I'm going to set those aside. That's my top and my bottom. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we can get the sides. So I want to make the 5 1 inch and 1/8. Actually, let me measure. Yeah, I did it 1 inch and 1/8. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this as close to 1 inch and 1/8 as I can possibly get it. Okay, this is the factory cut side, so I'm going to actually use that. It's not that my cutting is off, it's just that this is a little bit more square. And this is, cutting 1/8 is a little bit harder than cutting just 1 inch or 1 1/4 inches. Okay, there's 1/8, 1 1/8, and we're going to do the same thing to this. That's my factory cut side. Okay, so those will be for the top. Now, you actually need 4 of these. Remember, you have a top and then you have a bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these and put them aside. Then I'm going and so I will go through there and see if I can find sizes that are going to work for this. So let's go ahead and cut this first to make sure that we get these pretty even. Because this piece is so small, it's just a little bit harder to cut. And let's do this one. And then I'm going to match them to see, yeah, they are just about perfect. So I'm going to put them over here with my other chipboards, and we're going to work on the longer side now. Now, when we make a box, you know that this is 9 1/4, this side. So because this is going to be exact, we want this side to be just a little bit longer so that when we put them together, we put one overlapping the other to make a very perfectly square box, as perfect as we can get, as perfect as I can get. So what we want to do is we want to add about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to take this and there we go. So I'm going to make it 1 1/8 inch this way. So let's go ahead and mark that first. Now it looks like I'm going to be able to get both boxes this side at least. This side we're going to have to find more papers to cut, or chipboard to cut. So that's my 1 1/8 inch deep. Now what I want to do, we know that this is 9 1/4 inches long. So we want to add 1/8 of an inch to that. So I'm going to go ahead and find my 9 1/4, and then I'm going to move it up to 9 3/8. So I'm going to go ahead and cut both of these. I'm actually going to cut this one first because we're going to need 4 of this size, and I think I can get 2 out of here. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to cut my short side first. And then I'm going to cut my longer side. Okay, so let's measure this one and make it 1 1/8 inch. And you can see I'm very slow about this. It's because I'm trying to get it, for me, as perfect as I possibly can, which isn't saying a whole lot, but I try my best. I've watched videos where the girls are so perfect, and I just think, oh, I wish I could do that. I can't. It's okay. I am having a blast. Watch your fingers if you use a guillotine. Okay, I don't think this is big enough. No, it's too small. So I am going to check these to make sure that they're the same. Yes, they are. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm separating. This is one bottom, 2 sides, and 2 tops. So I'm going to put that aside, and then I'm going to work on getting this one. So again, we still have this left over, and we can get the 2 long sides from this. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and mark 1 1/8. Okay. Now, some of you are probably wondering, well, why doesn't she measure and do the other one? The reason is when you cut this, it does cut on the line, but it also, it will shorten the second one. So I do one at a time, and then I move on to the second one. Oh, and I took my nails off. I am finding that I like to bake scones. I like to play with food in my hands, like scones. You have to get the bread. So I don't like nails. They were really fun for a while, but I don't care for them. Oh, and let's go ahead and mark. We need 9 3/8 on this side. So I'm going to get this one set. Yeah, so there we go. I'm gonna have to take my sweater off. It's warm in here. The sun, even though it's winter, the sun comes in this, we're on the south side here in my studio, and so the sun comes in and it gets very warm. Okay, so there's that one. And then we're going to cut this one. Okay, and then I'm going to measure the other side. And we only have to measure 9 3/8 and then cut it. Or 1 1/8, I'm sorry, on this side. Now that's a fluke. I got it right on the first try. I didn't have to futz with it. Now be very careful of your fingers. And again, I'm going to check these to make sure they're very square. So that's going to go to my second piece. So the only other thing we have to do is do the top. And I'm going to look in my scrap and see what I have. Oh, I think this might just about do it. Yeah. Oh, let's see what this is. Nope, it's an inch. It's too small. And that's just a little too big. So I'm going to use this. So the first one that I want to do is I want to go ahead and make them 5 1/4 inches long. I'm measuring these. Yep. So we want to go ahead and make sure we have 5 1/4. Ooh, which this is almost exact. Yay! Look at us. Now, that's going to be very hard to cut, but I'm going to try it. If it doesn't work out, we can always do something else. And I'm going to go ahead and measure my 1 1/8 while I've got the board out. No, that's 1 1/4, Carla. Okay, here's one. And I might do the other one on the other side. Let's see, 1 1/8. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do the long side first. And the reason I do the long side is so that they're both at least exactly the same length. Even if they're off by a fraction. At least they're both the same length. So then I'm going to cut these, the 1 1/8 inch wide. And I'm going to check them. Okay, they're good that way and they're good that way. So basically I have my top and my bottom cut. Now, before we start gluing these together, I'm going to take one of these, and this is a whole different situation. Let me put that back in my scrap drawer. We want to have an inch on each side. So I am going to go ahead and mark an inch with my ruler on all 4 sides. There's one side. Two. Three. And four. So now what I found is if I use some masking tape to mask off my edges, I'm going to be able to see where I start and stop a lot easier. And I am going to use my X-Acto knives. So I have masking tape, or you can use, let's see, where's my blue tape? I've gotten this repositionable tape from scrapbooks.com, and I could cut it in half or buy the thinner one and use this because it's repositionable, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use my masking tape for today. And so what I did was I went ahead and at least, let's see, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just one side at a time. So the other thing that I'm going to do is I don't want to cut into this, my outside. If I make a mistake and I accidentally, for example, if I put my guide on the inside and I'm cutting, I could accidentally slip and cut into this. And although it's not deep, it's still messy. So what I do is, and I'm going to use my bigger X-Acto knife, I have a little bit better control with it. What I do is I will put my guide, my ruler, on that line. And then if I accidentally cut crooked, it doesn't matter. This is not my book. So I want to go ahead and make a deep cut where my line intersects. And then I'm going to, see, I already did it. I'm going to draw down until I get just about to my masking tape. And I'm going to keep doing it until I know I've gone through. Oops, I went off. Not quite. Let's finish it up. I should have just kept cutting. So you can see there. Now you can see that I have some rough edges here that I didn't get. So that's where we'll use our sandpaper. So I'm going to do the other side. And I'm going to lift my tape. It's going to take some of my, it's okay. Masking tape is not supposed to do that, but it did. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to line it up. And I'm going to start cutting. they should actually be on my cutting board. So there we, ooh, not quite. So what I'm doing is I haven't quite gotten to the end, and so I'm going to take my knife and just push it through. Okay, there's quite a ways to go. Okay, so then this is going to get covered, so don't worry about that. Actually, I should have used my repositionable tape. It would not have pulled up like that. So then, since I already have this cut, I kind of know where to stop. So I'm going to go ahead and put my ruler, my guide, on there, and I'm going to cut. So I'm going to let you finish this on both sides, this side and this side, and then we will come back and we will work on. Okay, so we've gotten everything cut out, and I'm going to erase my marks because we want to put paper on this, and I want to make sure that nothing shows through. So you want to go ahead and take your sandpaper and just sand over where it's uneven or crooked. Now, I'm not terribly worried about the corners because they are very hard to get perfectly square. You can try and use your scissors if you want to cut those and get them a little bit more square. That's a personal choice. Because when you look at our tool, it has a little lip, so the sandpaper doesn't get entirely into the corner. You could pull some of it off. Let's see if I can do that. Yeah, I'm going to pull some of it off and try it by hand. The problem with that is your hand is soft, and so it won't make a perfect corner either. So this is just a little bit futzy doing this part, and you're welcome to work on this. So after you have it as square as you're happy, such a messy table, we're going to use a large piece of 8.5 by 11 paper. Now, what I want to make sure when I lay this on the 8.5 by 11, and this is basically the only piece that we're going to do this to until we get to the foxing, we want to make sure that we have a little bit on the bottom and a little bit on the top. Now, you're welcome to use a 12 by 12 piece if you're more comfortable with that. I'm not going to worry about it terribly. I just want to make sure that I kind of have, yeah, I almost have an inch on both ends, at least 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to glue this down onto this about as centered as I can possibly get it. So, okay.